steady times.
Welcome to Fight for Life, a pro-life radio show discussing the ministry of First Choice Pregnancy Services here in Las Vegas. I'm Deborah, board member and executive director of First Choice Pregnancy Services.
And I'm Jessica, logistics specialist at First Choice Pregnancy Services.
We are ambassadors for the unborn. Welcome to the show.
Good afternoon, Fight for Life friends. Thanks for joining us today. This is Jess and Celeste, and we're your ambassadors on behalf of the unborn babies everywhere. And we're here to share insights and real-life stories of what we've experienced in this Fight for Life.
We are kicking off our broadcast with the weekly updates so you can stay connected to First Choice Ministry and how many lives are affected by your support. From April 13th to April 19th of 2023, First Choice provided 75 pregnancy tests and 64 ultrasounds to our clients. The patients we serve are mainly abortion-bound, but we serve women from all walks of life, and it's important to reach them with our free services and speak up for their defenseless child. Proverbs 24:11 tells us to rescue those being led to death, hold back those staggering toward slaughter, which is truly the heart of the First Choice Ministry. If you'd like to join the conversation or if you're interested in sponsoring this radio show, please call the radio station at 702-650-5588.
Today's guest is none other than Melissa Clement, Executive Director of Nevada Right to Life. Welcome, Melissa. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got involved in the pro-life community, and introduce us to Nevada Right for Life?
Well, thank you very much, both of you. First of all, thank you for sharing the stats. You guys do a fantastic job right there on the front line, saving the unborn every single day, and I appreciate you greatly.
Amen. We appreciate you.
Yeah, so I'm from up in Reno, and I've been with Nevada Right to Life for, let me think, my daughter is 24, so 24 years.
Oh, wow.
And I've got a big confession. Many people have heard this before. I wasn't always pro-life. I was one of those very misguided youths that grew up in the 80s and thought that abortion was a woman's right. And so I come from that side, but thankfully I had a radical conversion that happened in the blink of an eye, and I went from, somebody who was a Planned Parenthood supporter and an advocate and all that kind of stuff to 100% pro-life, feeling like I had to make amends for a lot of years of doing and advocating for basically evil.
Amen. Can you briefly tell us about what was that transition point? What happened?
Well, I grew up in a family that was a very large Catholic family, youngest of 7, and my folks just figured that I was pro-life. We never really talked about it. But when I was very young, Roe v. Wade happened. And so at that pivotal time that probably somebody should have had a conversation with me about abortion, it just didn't happen. And so, like I said, I was an advocate. I even brought Sarah Weddington, who was the attorney for that successfully argued Roe v. Wade. I brought her to speak on campus at UNR. Thought she was the greatest thing since sliced bread. And then what basically happened after encouraging others to get abortions, thankfully I never got pregnant, so I never made that choice, but I'm guilty of helping other people make that terrible choice. But after, years of doing that, my husband and I were expecting our first baby, and I knew within 3 days that something radical was different. Wow. I knew that there was a life growing within me, and then, that was the beginning. That was the door that God opened to my heart. And then I happened to be a couple years, I was pregnant during the whole Rick Santorum partial birth abortion debate. And I was at my mother's house, and she basically said, look at, his big illustrations of how they would rip those babies limb from limb, or, stick the scissors in the back of their head, deliver a dead baby. It was horrifying. And my mother said, that's the age of the baby you are carrying right now.
Wow.
Is that really what you're in favor of? And, it was a pretty big, to use a tired phrase, but really appropriate. That was a come to Jesus moment for me. And a couple of other things happened. And, one day I went to bed thinking, I am personally pro-life, but I would never say it's the wrong thing for somebody else, to waking up 100%. Like, I understood the whole problem with this in terms of what it had done to our society and all that kind of stuff. And I woke up, couldn't stop talking about it. So that was about 24 years ago.
Wow.
That's powerful.
How did that lead you? Now, were you the founder of Nevada Right to Life, or how did that lead you to Nevada?
No.
How did that lead you to Nevada Right to Life?
Well, God has a sense of humor, and then I have wonderful friends who walked alongside me as I was so wrongheaded all through college. And then these friends, they got me involved in a church group when my children were young, and the president of Nevada Right to Life happened to be their mother, and she was the kind of the tightest woman, like in the MOPS group, the tightest woman of the group, and she would always talk about this, and I would always leave the room because it burned my ears. I didn't want to listen to this. And one day I was forced to listen to it, and so for several years I was a newsletter editor, and my background is in politics and event planning and stuff like that. So it was natural that I started doing a little bit of lobbying in Carson City, because I had always done that. And then one day, Pat was unable to do it anymore, and we all said, not me, and I was the last one to say, not me.
She said she drew the short
Nose
straw.
I totally did. And I said at the time, I'll do this, but don't make me speak publicly, and don't make me go on the radio.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was, and everybody, there are a lot of people up here in Reno who had to struggle through the very awkward and difficult years that it took me to learn to speak publicly and to kind of get a hold of my voice.
Well, I appreciate the exposure that you got prior to today. That would have prepared you for coming on Fight for Life with us today. You certainly can't tell that you once struggled in that area. Even I do. So you talked about lobbying, and I know that Celeste and I have been working right alongside you in that area, especially with some of the legislature that's going down in Nevada right now that seems to be really kind of piggybacking what California has already done and possibly preparing us for the infanticide bills that California passed.
I think right now we're about 2 years behind California, but we are only 2 years behind them.
Right. We're right on the tails of what they're doing.
Absolutely. And this is one of those times where we say thank you for not having an annual session or, a legislature that's in 24/7, because otherwise we'd be about 2 weeks behind them.
I mean, you're so right. That's such a good observation. Specifically, I wanted to talk to you about SB 131, SJR 7. These are some really dynamic and extreme legislature that has now passed the Senate floor. Can you just talk about some of those things that they're preparing us for?
Yeah, and now if I get too wordy, just jump in and say, because I can get a little bit,
No, you go for it, Melissa. Go for it.
Okay, so SB 131, we'll start with that. About a year ago, a little less than a year ago, when the Dobbs decision came down, and just to remind everybody, the Dobbs decision overturned Roe, but in doing so, all it did was it returned that decision on abortion lawmaking back to the states and back to the federal government,
Right.
instead of at the Supreme Court where states were very handcuffed at what they could do. So it was a victory for the unborn, but it was also a victory for democracy. When that happened, the former governor, whose name I will not mention, he put out an executive order that what he said was this was gonna make sure that nobody would throw women in jail for getting an abortion in Nevada. Not something that happens anyway, but there were other things in this executive order, and one big thing was that the way it was written was if something related to abortion was legal in Nevada, Nevada law enforcement and the governor could not take part in any investigation of that crime if it was from another state. So the easiest way to understand this, and it's the issue that we all worry about the most, Nevada doesn't have parental notification or parental consent for a minor girl seeking an abortion. Our surrounding states, Idaho, Arizona, and Utah, all have solid laws that protect parental rights and protect the girls by requiring parental consent, not notification. So from the get-go, that executive order, that was that was what I came out immediately with. This is protecting predators. This is protecting pedophiles and bad actor adults that are bringing girls across the border for secret abortions. Well, unfortunately, that when we lost the elections, yes, elections have consequences. I never want to hear anybody say they're pro-life and then tell me they didn't vote, because it's the most important thing we can do. Now we have Nicole Cannizzaro, who's the speaker or the majority leader. She is seeking to codify that executive order. It was poorly written when what's-his-name wrote it, the governor who shall not be named, who lives in Chicago. Thankfully, it was poorly written then. She created a bill that's poorly written. It's bad policy. It protects predators, and as you said, it passed the floor of the Senate, so it's halfway through. The vote was 15-6 in favor. All Democrats voted in favor of this bill. 2 Republicans voted in favor of this bill. The rest of the Republicans stayed with pro-lifers.
Do you know off the top of your head who were the 2 Republicans that voted for it?
Yeah, and it pains me, but it was Heidi Gansert and Carrie Buck.
So what happens next with SB 131?
It's gonna do the same thing over on the other side. So it's going to start off by going to the Assembly Commerce and Labor Committee. There will be a hearing there. That will be our one chance to have a public voice. So I encourage everyone to learn about SB 131, learn about the good arguments against it, and to take part in the legislative poll, email and call the assembly members of that committee, and think about testifying either in Reno, in Las Vegas, or call in on the telephone.
And then that leads us to SJR 7, and that would be an actual constitutional amendment making it legal to kill babies throughout the entire pregnancy, all 9 months. That also passed the Senate floor. You have anything that you want to say about SJR 7? That would be absolutely detrimental to the state of Nevada.
Absolutely. Between Nevada ranks at like somewhere between 38th and 40th in pro-life state, as a pro-life state. So we're at the bottom. But but we do have
right
some
alongside our education.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, we're a little better on abortion than education, but not much. So we do have some restrictions. Like currently, it's codified in law that a woman can have an abortion for any reason or no reason through the first 6 months of pregnancy. It just has to be a doctor that does it. After that 6 months, she has to go to a hospital, and they have to take down her reason. But it's a big loophole, and but she has to go to a hospital. There aren't a lot of hospitals that will take part in this unless they feel like it's a big emergency. But it happens here. There are some other protections where there's kind of informed consent. It's not very strong, but there's a little bit of informed consent. And if a baby survives an abortion, they must provide life-saving
Measures.
help to that child.
Good.
Yeah. So we have some. SJR 7 will effectively eliminate all that, and it will be all 9 months. We will not have the ability to require that a woman is offered an ultrasound before she gets an abortion. There just will be no rules. This will be the Wild West.
Wow.
And as you said, it's a constitutional amendment, which means it has to pass the full legislature this time, and then in 2 years it has to pass with the exact same wording, the same the next legislature, and then it goes on the ballot in 2026.
Wow.
And this is a nightmare because it's not something that the governor can veto. He has no say in this. And if we look at what has happened this last couple of years with every single ballot measure that's come along that has anything to do with life, unfortunately, we don't win at this point. We have not figured out a way in any of the states to win. And the reason, and it's very simple. Why? The other side is not constrained by truth, and they have an endless bank account. And you guys especially saw what they did to the candidates down in Las Vegas, where they spent a ton of money.
They did.
And they lied.
They did.
And so, and I'm still smarting over the constitutional amendment that passed this last legislative cycle. It seemed like it was a pretty slam dunk thing that we should have been able to stop, and we weren't. And the reason why is because we didn't have $10 million to fight it. So,
wish there was a way we could figure out how to get that funding so that we can counteract all of this negativity coming our way. Something go ahead.
The big important thing. It passed the Senate floor 13-8. All the Republicans voted against it. Sadly, all the Democrats are beholden to Planned Parenthood, and they voted for it.
Oh, yeah.
It'll go to the Assembly. We'll lose there, but we're hoping to hold all Republicans. And so if there was ever a reason why we all have to sit down and work together to throw out every last pro-death legislator and replace them with somebody who cares about life, cares about kids, this is the reason.
That's right.
So
there was one thing that particularly stuck in my craw, and I know that it bothered Celeste a lot too, as we both watched what was happening on the Senate floor, specifically for SJR 7, as one of our senators, Nicole, what's her last name? How do you pronounce it?
Canizero.
Thank you.
Canizero, I believe.
Was up there speaking against us removing speaking against not moving SJR 7 forward and giving women the right to kill their baby all the way up to 9 months, as she looked like she was ready to deliver her baby herself, and she was out of breath and struggled to speak as she was up there, as Celeste said, on her soapbox. talking about talking about women's rights and how she trusts the people to vote on this, and that watching that scene unfold as she's proudly carrying her child, but yet is also advocating for someone that is as far along in their pregnancy to be able to kill that child. As Melissa was sharing her story about her mom saying, this is how far along your baby is right now. Do you really advocate for that?
Right. I think that was a pure example of it's not a mind issue, it's a heart issue.
Yeah.
Right. And I'll tell you, I was up in the gallery, and it was jarring. And, it's like the unspoken thing nobody brings up, but it's going through everybody's mind.
It's the elephant in the room.
It is.
It's the elephant in the room. It really is. And there was also kind of a little bit of a Pilate Pontius washing his hands moment. She is pushing this, but she wants to say it's not my fault. The voters are going to decide. And it's very sad. And I hope, I think we should all be praying for her especially.
Yeah. Pray for all of the legislators that
and I think
now have a say
also
in it.
too, Melissa, with your testimony of just how you articulated that come to Jesus moment of not okaying it for anybody else. You're pro-life within yourself, but you don't want to push that on anybody else, and how actually wrong that is. I think right now with our legislatures that we vote on, we need to truly know that they are fully pro-life and through and through, because I think with especially the two Republicans who voted in support of SB 131, it was a disappointment. It was a disappointment for the pro-life community because they have that exact mindset of they stated when they said their testimony that they are pro-life, but they are voting in support of SB 131. So they need to have that come to Jesus moment.
Yeah, exactly. And 2 days before, both of them gave very full-throated and solid and totally pro-life floor speeches against SJR 7.
Yeah.
And that's
So
what
confusing.
was so disappointing. I was hoping that they would carry that on. And
I do want to ask you,
know,
Melissa.
Go ahead.
We have, Celeste and I both, and many others, we've both been very personally involved in watching the opposition pour into the Senate against these bills, against this amendment. Why aren't the legislators listening to the people that they're representing when it comes to public opinion on these highly controversial matters? Why aren't they listening?
They take their orders from the Democrat National Committee in Washington. Quite honestly, there's if you're pro-life, I dare you to try and make an argument that you can vote for a Democrat ever again, because they are controlled. I think they bring in, like our legislators have college students or retired folks as their staff. Democrat National Committee assigns them staff, and they're watched, and they are told how to vote.
Wow.
And there aren't too many of them that will step outside the box.
So they're just voice pieces. They're not actually there to do it.
Yeah, they absolutely are.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that.
Elections have
feedback.
consequences. That's the most important thing that I can stress.
Yes.
Sadly.
Yes. Amen. So the question was asked, where can we read about these bills? Is that right? So you can go to Nellis, the Nellis website, NELIS. Melissa, thank you so much for coming on with us today. We are about to wrap this up, but before we do, how can our listeners find out more about Nevada Right to Life, your website, social media, that kind of stuff?
The Nevada Right to Life, all spelled out, .org. Please go to our website and sign up for our emails. we are trying to get our website a little bit more user friendly so people can get to where they need to go on the legislation. But and then follow us on Facebook, Nevada Rights Live.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We really appreciate you coming on. I hope that you return and come back on Fight for Life Radio again. Listeners, if you know of anyone that is abortion bound or is considering abortion, or maybe they've already started the abortion process with the abortion pill, send them on over to First Choice. As you know, we are the only pregnancy center in Nevada that is doing abortion reversals, so we can help to possibly save the life of the baby, even though abortion process has already been started. You can, our website, get a hold of us on our website, fcpsfriends.org, or you can reach out to us via phone at 702-294-2273. If you'd like to sponsor this radio program, Fight for Life, you can call the radio station at 702-650-5588. Melissa, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate all your feedback.
Thank you so much.
Amen. God bless, and everyone have a great week.
Thanks for joining your ambassadors for the unborn on the Fight for Life radio today and every Thursday on KKVV 1060 AM, the best news radio, the gospel airship.
If you'd like to support the cause of saving unborn babies, or if you have a question you'd like us to answer on the air, go to fcpsfriends.org or call us at 702-294-CARE. Again, that number is 702-294-2273.
On behalf of his little ones, thank you and God bless.